Good morning, challengers. All right, good to see everybody on this beautiful morning. Everybody bubbly and shiny looking, cleaned up, smelling good. Except we do have some rowdy people in the back. Hannigans, take a seat. Thank you. Good to have you guys here. Good to have you. So, announcements. Sharon's got some things to say, and only a minute. Okay.
1 minute. Good morning. All right, that's an inside joke. But anyway, we will be passing the list around again this morning for our tailgate party. October the 12th, 5:30 at the Soders. It is so good to see you. It is so good to see Jan. So anyway, be sure and sign up, $25 a person. Food is being catered by Albert G's, and we've got all kinds of games and fun stuff to do. Wine, beer, water, Coke, whatever you want to drink, and some yummy chocolate cake for dessert. Can't beat that for $25 a person.
It's always a great evening. We do have a clipboard here where you can put your check or your money, well, your check, I guess, and then Sharon, you would get the checks, or who gets the checks? Jan? Kathy Hannigan will get the checks. All right, any other announcements? Visitors? Looks like a regular crowd here. Well, the guy that was going to give the prayer was Mike Moore. And, he always does a short prayer, but he called in sick. So in his honor, I will do a short prayer. Can we pray? Gracious God, we give thanks for this great day and this wonderful season we're entering. We ask your prayers for all those who are in any need or adversity. Send your Spirit to continue to challenge us to live and love like Jesus and love our neighbor as ourselves. In Jesus' name we pray. Amen. All right, Richard, you're going to do the introduction.
It is with great joy that I present to you my neighbor today. Vicky Langston lives at Trinity Woods, as we do, and she's just right up the street from us. In fact, I think they moved in a month ahead of us. And so we both are approaching our 10th year at Trinity Woods. So anyone interested, come our way. We'd be welcoming you to you. Vicky, you read all about her and her attributes and her awards that she's received. And so I just want to simply introduce to you Vicky Langston, a very committed person in the interfaith world. And she's going to be speaking about open tables. Anyone been to Open Table? Raise your hand high so we can see. All right, good. I need to raise mine. Right. I think we've been with Open Table since you started, 15 years ago. She's going to tell us more about that, but mostly about interfaith here in Tulsa and some of the other religions. Let's welcome Vicky.
I've already goofed because I knocked this off. Do you think I can just lay that there? Well, that's a danger. Yeah. I think I got it. Okay. Richard asked about my folder. I don't really need it, but I take it with me every place I go for interfaith, because when I started doing interfaith work, my daughter covered this for me, and I just think it's really neat. So it's just kind of having her with me every time. Well, thank you for Richard for inviting me and this class for having me today to talk about my favorite subject. You've been very warm in welcoming me. Betsy has been so nice, and Star, and what is it, Teresa, and then to see the Reeses, who are old friends. It's good to see them again. Richard, as Richard mentioned, he and Peggy have been have attended almost all of the open tables dinners that we've had, and have been very supportive, and I appreciate their support and their encouragement all the time. I've learned so much about Interfaith since I started in 2004. I've learned a lot, but the problem with learning, it only opens up more that you don't know. And so I'm just still learning. And I appreciate your wanting to know more. Keenan, I appreciate your prayer, your short prayer about getting to know your neighbor, because we do have an interfaith community, and our neighbors are often of another faith. So thank you for that. Open Tables is an interfaith program that brings together folks from, right now, from the Jewish, Muslim, Hindu, Baha'i, and Christian faiths. And they come together to share a potluck dinner 3 times a year. And this year, we're getting ready to start our 15th year. It's hard to believe that we've been doing this for 15 years, but it's certainly been a blessing to me. Let me give you some background. In 2004, my husband, Guy, and I moved to Tulsa, having just retired. Both of us retired. Guy from serving 38 years, appointed as a United Methodist minister all over Oklahoma. We lived all over the state. And I retired from teaching 29 years. And when people always say, well, what'd you teach? Well, when you're married to a Methodist minister, you teach wherever there's an opening in that school system when you get there. And so I taught various things, but always in the lower grades. So now when I retired, or when we both retired, we immediately went to Boston Avenue and joined there. But I announced at that time that I wanted to do interfaith work. I mean, listen, you don't know how naive a statement that was. I had no idea what that was going to look like. I didn't have a vision of what I was going to try to do. I just had it on my heart that that's what I needed to do. This was just a short time after 9/11, and there was a lot of Islamophobia around, and so I just felt a need to do something. Now, I didn't want to go out across the world anywhere. I wanted to do it in Tulsa and to do what I could. Well, like I said, we joined Boston Avenue, and I don't know how much you know about Boston Avenue, but what I didn't realize is that they had already been doing interfaith work for a long time. And the minister at the time, Dr. Musan Biggs, he was known for doing interfaith work, and as a matter of fact, there was a statue commissioned to honor him that's in our North Park. That's an interfaith statue. Well, I didn't know any of this, and I told him, whenever a minister retires and joins at Boston Avenue, he always said to them, you can be as involved or not. It's up to you. You won't be pressured. Well, I said, well, I want to do interfaith work. You know what? They had an interfaith committee. Who ever heard of a church having an interfaith committee? And so he sent me to that committee. Well, at that committee, I met a woman named Nancy Day. Do any of you know who Nancy Day is? Well, at the time, she was CEO and president of OCCJ, Oklahoma Center for Community and Justice, and a member of Boston Avenue, so of course she was on the Interfaith Committee. And so I say at this committee meeting, you know, this is embarrassing looking back on all of this, you know, that I wanted to do interfaith work. And so she could have rolled her eyes and just gone on, you know, but she didn't. She stayed after the meeting, came to me and said, well, Vicky, what would you like to do? I don't know. I really didn't have a clue. And she said, well, would you like to be on the Trialogue committee? Well, this was August. I had just moved to Tulsa. The Trialogue, some of you may have attended that. It was 3 Sundays in February where issues were discussed by Christians, Muslims, and Jews. This was August. I had not lived here in February. Did I know what the Trialogue committee was? I didn't have any idea. But I thought in my mind, you know, I may not get offered anything else. I better say yes. So I said, yes, and she said, okay, this is when we're meeting, and I was on that committee for 9 years. Now, it turned out that was a turning point in what I was able to do relative to open tables, but I'll get to that in a minute. I tell you all of this to say that open tables would probably not exist without being on that committee. That was really crucial. Now, in 2007, that interfaith committee that I went to in 2004, in 2007 I became the chair of it. And I met at the beginning, I met with Reverend Dr. Bill Kroll. Some of you may remember him. He was an associate at Boston Avenue. And we met to talk about what the direction of that committee was going to be. I wanted it to be more than what it had been. And because I wanted folks from different faiths to get to know each other, to talk to each other, and really find out that we're all human beings, all wanting the same things in life, the best for our families, and to be productive. Well, as we talked, what better way to get to know each other than to share a meal? You know, when sharing a meal with others is different from just talking together. It is an act of commitment, a recognition of shared humanity. And that really spoke to how I pictured what I wanted to do as my dreams of interfaith began to develop. But I needed a committee made up of folks from those different faiths, from the Christian, Jewish, and Muslim communities in order to start anything. And so remember that Trialogue committee that I was on for 9 years. There I got to know people from the Jewish and Muslim communities. And so I had then someone to go to. If I had not been on that Trialogue committee, I would not have known those persons. Now, have any of you ever participated in or heard about dinners for 8? Okay, a lot of churches had those, and they were a great way for people in a church to get to know one another. And so they'd be assigned to a group of 8, and they would have dinners in each other's homes, and that was a great way to establish the membership and to get to know one another. Well, that kind of gave us a clue about what we wanted to do with Interfaith. So as we promoted it and had people sign up, they would be assigned to a group. I would assign them to a group of, so that there were about 6 people in each group. And we would ask them, and these would be people from 3 faiths. There would be 3 faiths represented in each group. And we would ask them to host in their homes 3 dinners a year. That meant each couple or each 2 people would host one time. Well, for some groups, that worked just fine. And we had, several people sign up for that. But for the most part, it was a real struggle to get them to agree together on a date that they were all available. And then when it was their turn to host, I would get phone calls saying, "What do I serve? What's kosher?" Because they wanted to be welcoming and respectful to the other people, but they weren't sure what to do. And so we struggled with that for 2 years. And at the end of both of those years, we had a potluck dinner. And at the potluck dinners, they all showed up, brought their dish food to share, and it was wonderful. So it finally came through to us, that's what we needed to do. And from then on, that's been something that has been true about Open Tables. We keep evolving, we keep tweaking, and I'll be telling you about changes as I go along. But that was the first big change. And so from then on, we've had 3 dinners a year, potluck dinners, and those have been very successful. Now, what does it look like when someone signs up and comes to an Open Tables dinner? They register. We like for them to register ahead of time so that we have name tags ready and enough tables, that kind of thing. But when they register, we ask them to sign a thing saying that they're not there to convert. That's not what Open Tables is about. Open Tables is about respecting the other faiths and learning about them. When you come to a dinner and you're at a table and you share with these other people that are from other faiths, and you find out that you're just talking about each other's families, where they live, maybe where they came from, just like you would at any dinner or meeting, and you meet someone new. You want to know about their family or about them and where they came from. And that's, when that happens, then we know, okay, this Muslim family seems just like me. They're just a family. And then you go home and you hear in the news about some extremist that's done something. Then you're not as likely to lump all the people in that faith together, because you think, no, I met a family and they were really nice. They're not like that. And all the faiths have extremists, even our faith. And if you think about it, we've had even more extremists lately that would be considered terrorist. So it's a common thing in all the faiths that there's terrorists, but we don't want to be lumped with them, do we? So let's not lump the other faiths all the same. Well, when you arrive at open tables and you bring your dish, in the beginning, they would come in with their dish and come to the registration table, holding their dish now, and paying their $10. $10 is for the year. It's just to cover our expenses. We're not out to make money. But they get their name tag. They pay their $10. All the time they're balancing this dish. And then once that's happened, then they could go in and put their dish on the big table. So we changed that. Now, when you arrive with your dish, immediately inside the front door, it's a small table. You set your dish down. There's a card. You write on it what your dish is and any main ingredients that anyone might need to know. That's taped to the dish, and you don't have to touch it. Someone else takes it, and you can go and take care of your business without balancing a dish. And so that was one of our tweaks one year. But all of that food is put on a long table, and it's a sight to behold, to see all the food from all these different cultures, because everyone brings just one dish, one recipe from their culture or from what they're used to having, and shares it together. Of course, pork is always discouraged, because that is a main thing that other faiths leave out of their diet. Okay, when they go to the registration table, they're given a name tag, and on the name tag is written the number, the table number where they're to sit. Maybe you'd think, well, I would want to sit with my friends. Yes, that's the problem. If we didn't assign, all the Christians would sit together and the Jews would sit together. And so we know that they're there to get to know someone from another faith. So no one objects to being assigned to a table. Now, in the beginning, I did all of the assigning. I received all the registrations, and I would write everyone's name on a card, and depending on the color, you know, the Jews would be one color index card and the Muslims another. And so I'd want to have 3 colors at each table. And so my dining room table, you know, was the registration, you know. And, oh, that was such a headache. And then we would get to the dinner, and here these name tags all had the table they were to go to. But you know what happens? Someone doesn't show up. You know, there'll be 2 couples or a family or whatever. That you had this all worked out so that this would be a good group, you know, and half of them don't show up in that group. And so here would be a couple sitting by themselves at a table. And it would just break my heart. But then at the same time, someone else would show up that hadn't registered, and we didn't know they were coming, so we put them at a new table because we didn't know they were coming. And that's okay that they came, but we were putting them back there, and then they end up being by themselves. So then we're rushing around trying to get those together, and so here came another change. So then we started doing it on the computer. And we have a young woman on our committee who is really good at this, and as people come in and they get their name tag, it doesn't have a table number on it yet. She looks on here and she knows how to assign and starts at the front, and whether they've registered or if they're just coming without registering, she assigns them so that she's got at least 3 faces at each table on her computer, and we fill it up as it goes. Oh, it works so much better. It's a lot easier for me, for her to do it rather than for me to do it. And then we have an interfaith prayer. Now, I know Christians usually pray before a meal. Some faiths pray after a meal or before, but it doesn't seem to be a big deal when. But we were doing it before. That's what I was always used to. And the interfaith prayer worked like this. Ahead of time, we had someone from each faith that was planned ahead and knew they were going to participate in the prayer. Like someone that was Muslim, but also someone from the Turkish community who is also Muslim, someone from the Jewish faith, so forth. And the person from the Christian faith would read this prescribed prayer. It's a simple prayer about being at open tables. And that person would read the prayer, hand it to the next person, and if they were Hindu, they would already have it translated into Hindi, and they would read it in Hindi. Then maybe the next one would do it in Arabic, and the next one Hebrew, and so on, depending on what else faiths we have represented. I just love that part. Well, at first, I would do it, like I said, before the meal. But that was always because two people hadn't shown up yet. And so, we're waiting on them, and people are wanting to eat. And so I started doing the prayer after the meal. That works great. That gives everyone time to get there, and it's a really special part of the evening for me. Sometimes we have discussion questions at the table, but most of the time we don't need that. People want to talk. They want to meet each other, and you should hear the noise in the room of people talking and visiting and getting to know, and that is just what we want to have happen. After eating, there's a short, we have the prayer now. So after the prayer, then we have a short program that's either about one of the faiths or about one of the special holidays of different faiths. It's always something about learning about other faiths. Now we have, besides the Christians, Muslims, and Jews that started out, we have Hindus and Baha'is are a big part of our open tables. We always start at 5:30 and end at around 7:30. It's usually about 2 hours. Now, Richard mentioned about our celebration, and we're getting ready to celebrate our 15th year. And so we're planning a lot of extra things to have happen. And so I just can't get it all in 2 hours. So we're starting at 5, and it probably will be over between 7:30 and 8. But it'll be fun. And we're going to have an interfaith fair. There'll be booths set up, and an opportunity to have your picture made, Hindu dancers. There's going to be all kinds of neat stuff to have happen to celebrate our 15th year. And so therefore, just for that one dinner, we'll start a little bit earlier. Now, the next dinner after that, we have 3 a year. And we go by the school year. It was another thing we learned. At first, it went over the summer. Well, all these faiths, they go back to Egypt or India or to their home, visiting. And so it didn't work to have dinners in the summer. So we use the school year. That works much better. And so this one in November is the first one. Then in January the 28th, the Muslims are hosting at the Peace Academy, which is the school associated and next to the mosque. And then April the 14th, it will be at Temple Israel. So those are the 3 this year. Last year, we had one at the first one was at the Hindu temple, then the Jewish Federation, and then the Turkish Raindrop House. We've had other dinners at the Hindu temple and the Jewish Federation, and families are always invited. We have a table at the side, like a long table, and we have all kinds of activities there for them. Books, interfaith themed books, coloring, little small games that they can take them to their seat to play, and then so that we want children to come, because how children are raised is how that affects the adult that they become. And so we want families there, and so we try to provide those. At this celebration, Boston Avenue is providing complimentary nursery, child care for 5 and under, so to encourage families to come. There are two things that have really and encouraged Open Tables to continue. One is the Open Tables Committee. And in just a moment, I'm going to give you a brochure, and you can see the names of those on the back of who's on the committee. And they're made up of people from these different faiths. And they recruit, or they talk and invite people from their faith to come to Open Tables, because I can't go to the Hindu temple and try to talk them into coming, and they'd say, "Who are you?" But Manju Kaul, they know her, and they do what she says, and so that's how we recruit or register people or invite people, is through the different ones on the committee. And that's worked really well. The other thing that has really helped is that Interfaith Committee at Boston Avenue that I've mentioned. From the beginning of Open Tables, they have seen themselves responsible for helping with that. And the committee, Open Tables Committee, is just not large enough to cover all the jobs that need to happen to pull off a dinner. And so that Interfaith Committee at Boston Avenue, they're at the door welcoming, taking the food, doing those kind of things. And we just wouldn't make it without all of those people it takes to pull that off. Now, before COVID, everything is before COVID, and we were having 150 to 160 people at the dinners. Then COVID came. Well, we held Zoom gatherings during COVID and still had our 3 events, but on Zoom. And that's not ideal, of course. It's not what we want. It wasn't our vision at all. But it did keep our group together and keep Open Tables going. So we're rebuilding from that, just like a lot of things are. At the last dinner, we had around 100, and so we're building back up. We look to have a big crowd at our celebration.
Where will that be?
Oh, good question. Who asked that? Okay, good. Thank you, Star. It will be at Boston Avenue in the Jubilee Center. And the reason it's there, instead of at the Hindu temple or someplace like that, that's where Open Tables started. The first few dinners were always there, and this was another change. The other communities said, well, we want to host. So we started having them at all these different places. And November 5th, yeah, I've said that, I think. And but the committee wanted to have it there because we're having these booths, and more people, and we needed the space, and not all the places had that kind of space. And that's where it all began. So that's why we're having it there. But then, like I said, the next one will be at the Peace Academy, and the last one at Temple Israel. So, good question. Okay, I'm going to give you our brochure, and Peggy and Richard are going to help pass these out. And well, you can help too, Keenan. Let me keep one. Thank you. Each year we produce a brochure. They look the same, but the dates inside are for each year because the dates and places change. Okay, let's look at the front. As you see, it says celebrating 15 years. Without opening it, turn over to the back. And of course, at the top, you see my name and my contact information. But then it says Open Tables Committee, so you can see the names of those that are on the committee. Now, you know, your minister, Kevin, he used to be on the committee before they started having babies. And he was a great asset, so I'm hoping that they will eventually be able to be back on that. And then the logos below of the different groups that they support us, not with money, but with love, attendance, and that they want Open Tables to succeed, and they just help us out different ways. Okay, then open just one flap so that you see participation agreement at the top. Okay, we ask people to sign this agreement. At the top part, it has to do with saying that you're there to learn and respect, not to convert. We just can't take that chance. And then the middle paragraph is about food, that you will take care of food yourself. We've labeled it. It's up to you to read and see if that's something that you can eat. Maybe you have allergies and there's something you're allergic to you can't eat. Anyway, we tried that. That's up to you to manage that. And then the bottom paragraph is if you happen to show up in a picture, whether it's okay to use that picture or not for any of our publicity. And even if you sign up online, it still asks you to read this and agree to it. It just makes it safer for all of us to be at the meetings. Okay, open up. And over on the left-hand side, how does it work? And it tells you there what you need to bring. A favorite dish to share, an open mind, respect for those of different traditions, and a readiness to dialogue. Then below that are the dates and locations that I've just told you about. And then in the middle has our purpose that I hope that you'll read. Over on the right-hand side is a registration you can use and mail in, or it tells you down below the logo that you can sign up online and pay. You can pay online. Paying online is our change for this year. So, okay, you know, it would be great if some of you would come. And if you do come, please come and tell me who you are and that you're here from this class. Would you do that? And it would be great if Harvard Avenue could become one of our supporters, and we could even have an open tables. You have a great facility for that. So think about that. Okay, now, part 2, okay, is I would talk just interfaith in general. Because I deal with it so much, I forget that not everyone has had the same exposure. Even though they may be sympathetic and open, they just may not have had the opportunities to learn about other faiths. And so I just want to quickly tell you about an experience I had week before last. A young woman that, well, she's young to me, but she has a grown son. And she helps me with something once a month, and she confided in me that she was really upset because her son is getting ready to marry a young Jewish lady, and he is converting to Judaism, and she was really upset, and she said that she had raised her son to worship God, and now he was turning his back on what she had taught him. And so I started talking with her and raising some questions with her and pointing out that the Jewish faith is a part of the Abrahamic faith. The Muslims, the Jews, and the Christians all take their heritage back to Abraham, to the same God. And they all say that. I mean, that's something that they agree on. It's not just something that Christians say or interfaith people say. And it's called the Abrahamic faith. And just because they might call their God Allah, that's because in Arabic, that's how you say God. In English, we say God. And so, anyway, this was, of course, new data for her. And I said, and you know, Jesus was a Jew. Oh, really? You know? And anyway, I just continued to help her see that there are a lot of similarities, that this isn't the end of the world for her family. Whether it is or not is up to her, how she's going to relate to that new daughter-in-law. Is she going to learn about her faith? Is she going to be accepting? So that she said, we had a happy family, and I want us to stay happy, and we're always together on Christmas. I said, no problem. It's up to you. If you're accepting of this new family and the decisions they've made, they'll be more accepting of yours. Come December, learn about Hanukkah. And you can give gifts during Hanukkah. That's what they do. And then they can, if you do that and honor them, then they can honor you and be at Christmas dinner. Anyway, she said, I am feeling so much better. And I left her with those challenges, and I'm eager to see her again and see how things are going. But I felt that was a real privilege that I had, that because of the things that I knew, I was able to help her family. So I don't know how much you already know about all the faiths, but my guess is you probably know more than the average person. I mentioned earlier about becoming the chair of the Interfaith Committee at Boston Avenue. Well, guess what? That was in 2007. I'm still chair, but I love it, and I just enjoy it. But when Nancy Day, that I mentioned earlier, when she retired, then she became my co-chair, and so we worked together, and have had a wonderful time working on that committee. That committee sees themselves as arming themselves with interfaith knowledge is their prime importance. And one way they've done that is through study. And so I brought some studies that we've had. Are you already familiar with Holy Envy? It's a great book. It's by Barbara Brown Taylor. And you may be familiar with her. She's a popular Christian author. And we studied this, and it's about, she taught a world religion class in a small college, and as she took students to, taught them about the different faiths and took them to visit the temples or whatever the place of worship was and meet the leaders, she became jealous of some of their rituals and holidays and practices. And but in the end, what she found out, and this is the way I've experienced it, is that yes, they seem to be really committed to their faith, but being around them and seeing how they are about their faith has helped me to be a stronger Christian. And this is how she tells about it. She said, students would sometimes tell me they were scared to study other religions for fear of losing their faith. It was an odd concern on the face of it. Would studying Spanish make them lose their English? Would traveling to Turkey cost them their U.S. passport? I had a stock response to their concerns. Engaging the faith of others is the best way to grow your own. And that's how I found it for myself. Another study, we're big fans of Eboo Patel, and he is a Muslim. His family's from India, but he grew up in the United States. But as a young man, rebelled against his family's religion, but eventually comes around and now we wanted him to come to the celebration, but it was going to cost us $20,000, so that's how much he's in demand. And he ended up on President Obama's Interfaith Council. But we just love his readings and his studies, and so we've done 2 of those. This one has a DVD that goes with it, and they're just great. So those are some studies if you're interested in any of that. Something that we did this past year was we offered 3 Sundays to any of the adult classes that wanted them. And so the first Sunday, someone from that Interfaith committee would present an overview of Christian history and that kind of thing. But then the next Sunday, we had someone from the Jewish faith would show up in that same class and talk about their faith. And then the third Sunday, someone from Islam would talk about Islam. And we did that for 5 adult Sunday school classes at Boston Avenue. That went over really well, and they want more. It sounded easy, but there was a lot of work to that. But then in 2018, the committee, this is back before, we decided to produce an interfaith handbook. And the way we did that was that people partnered up. Everyone had a partner, and they took a faith that shows up in the Tulsa area. And they researched it, wrote up, and we had certain basic things for them to look for. And then Nancy and I, once they had written that up, we connected them with someone from that community to go over it, to say, yes, this is what we believe, or to make corrections, because we didn't want to produce something that wasn't true. And so that's what this is, and so I want to share these with you. And you might just take one per household, if you don't mind. Sure.
Well, 40 years ago, I was involved in TMM, and at that time, it was mainly mainline Christian churches and Jewish. So, yeah, 40 years ago, I was involved in TMM, and at that time, it was mainline Christian churches and the Jewish community, and the charismatic Christian community had nothing to do with it. Have they gotten on board over the last 40 years? Are they still wanting to convert everybody?
Right, they want to convert. They see that as their, that's their mission. You want to repeat what?
I just said that 40 years ago I was involved in TMM with Tulsa Metropolitan Ministry, and they're still going strong. But they were involved, they had mainly mainline Christian churches, the Presbyterians, the Methodists, the Lutherans, the Episcopals, but no charismatic Christian churches. And Madeline Mims came to one of our meetings. She said, I'm not interested in getting along with other religions. I want to convert everybody. So I'm a strong Christian, and they still feel that way. They still have, in 40 years, have not gotten involved in interfaith
Right.
ministry.
Right. Yes, Jack?
Did you have these discussions at the table ever lead to political situations?
I'm sorry. Just a minute, use the mic.
Do discussions at your table ever lean toward political discussions, and how do you deal with those situations?
No,
if they do?
the questions, if we have questions at the tables, they have to do with faith questions. Good question. Okay, if you, let's say, turn to page 9, say. It doesn't matter which one, but we'll just pick page 9. And there you see, and this is typical of each faith. Each faith got these 2 pages. And at the top would be what their symbol was and what that means, the name, the basic beliefs, and then depending on what it is, this varied, a little bit, but basically we wanted to know their main holidays, where they worshiped, how many were population-wise. Some we were able to say in Tulsa, but others, it was just in the world or in the United States, their sacred texts, so forth. This is a basic outline of what we did for each faith. Okay, if you go turn to the back, page 25. And here is a chart that holds all of that information that's in the previous pages. So you can look, all the faiths listed in the book are listed here on the left-hand side. Across the top are those questions. What do they call their supreme being? What's their sacred text, their leaders, so forth, holidays, that kind of thing, and then their symbol at the end. So here's a quick reference. But then if you want more details, you can find it inside here. So I hope you'll take this, because you never know who's coming to dinner. I want to end with one more thing if we have time. How many of you knew Reverend Dr. Don Pittman? Okay. Well, when he was dean, that gives you an idea of when this happened. My husband is a graduate of Phillips Seminary, and so we went to the graduation because he had served on different boards there. And so we went to the graduation, and this was when Don was the dean. And so at the end, he gave a charge to those graduating. And that's the card that I've lost. I don't know what could have happened to it. It's just, so if you run onto a little card about this size, and it has the Open Tables logo on one side, well, what he said was on the other side. And I loved the charge. It was just wonderful. And so I started using it as our send out at Open Tables, and we would stand and we would all recite that to each other to leave. And so
He was a member of this congregation, and they still use it for graduation.
oh, okay. All right, good, because I think it's great. Well, it mentioned about witnessing to your faith, and I found out this last year, here's another change, that that was offensive to some of the faiths coming, that witnessing is a Christian term. And so we rewrote, we didn't rewrite, we adapted it, we tweaked it. And so that's what I want to use, how we changed it. I wanted to read you the original because that's more what he said, but maybe you'll find it. This is how we've adapted it, and we'll be using it this year. And I'll close with this. We leave tonight on our own spiritual paths, but with sensitivity and respect for persons of other faiths who believe sincerely that they too have been touched by the holy. Thank you.